wanted to make an updated loadout video because I've made some changes and also switched into a different bag. I was using this bag, the MB2, for like a year, I think. It's honestly still in good shape. They need to put a plastic bottom on these, but luckily I don't go into crawl spaces anymore, so my stuff doesn't take anywhere near as much of a beating. But the problem was that it's a very compact bag, and honestly I haven't been able to fit too much more in this one than I had in this one. Hardly anything extra. I've just changed some tools, but there's not any dividers or anything in here. There's one, but it just ended up being such a fuster cluck in there that it got frustrating. I would need one thing and have to dig around to pull it out. So this is the TP-XL, and I was using this bag previously for a while before I switched into this one and then switched back. So I like changing things up, you know. It's just something I enjoy doing. But anyways, this is how I have it set up. See, oops, it's out of frame. Sorry, this is hard to film. I'm just going to go through everything as quickly as possible, but I also don't want to leave out any details that might be helpful, especially for people getting into the trade and trying to make some decisions on what tools to buy and stuff like that. So I have my field piece smart probes here and here, and I have a video on smart probes if you're wondering about what this stuff is, and core depressors. So those fit really nicely there. I've been super happy with that. I've been really happy with being able to have basically a manifold set in my bag. So, you know, if I'm up on a roof, I don't have to walk several hundred yards back to the van just to get my gauges. It's all right here. I keep this file, which I cut the handle off of because I wanted it just to be lower profile. I don't need a comfortable handle. It doesn't matter. My hands are rough enough. This file is really helpful because these need to make an electrical, they need to have electrical continuity on their connection to copper pipe or whatever you're putting them on before they can read a temperature. So this is just a diamond file that'll shine up the surface, but I've really found it useful for, let's say like I've got a corroded wire and I just want to shine it up. I don't have enough room to really cut it back far enough. I can shine it up with this really nicely. You know, you can polish up a flare surface, or it's just, I've used it for other things and found it helpful. So on this side here, I keep an inspection mirror that I took the handle off of just to make it more low profile. But this is really handy for, I mean, a lot of time, you know, if you want to see whether you've got a leak somewhere and you got it sprayed with bubble spray, or you're trying to read the part number on a part that's turned away from you, or you know, you want to inspect some kind of contact or contacts that you can't quite see. This is great for that. All right, then I keep zip ties right up here, and just a little tip here. So you can make a band out of a zip tie, all right, and then you've got that little piece sticking off the tail, right? If you take another zip tie and you bend that around and go on that tail like that, what it does is it keeps this band that's holding everything tight from slipping down, you know, if you take 3 or 4 and getting lost in your bag. So just a quick tip there. I got a few other zip tie tips that I may do a video on at some point. This is one thing I added that I didn't have in the MB2, is the Klein just extendable screwdriver, and I keep the smaller tips as well. I just find that in a very crowded electrical cabinet and thing, this can really come in handy. So I like having it. I had room for the handles, or the handle in this one. In the MB2, all I had was the bits. I keep this screwdriver. Now, this is a ridiculously expensive screwdriver. It's made by Hand Tool Rescue, but it's made by hand, and I'm at the point in my career where, there are some tools I consider works of art, and I just love them. When I buy them, it's literally like buying artwork. I've used the heck out of this thing, and I love this screwdriver. My helper calls it my apocalyptic screwdriver. Apparently it could survive an apocalypse. All right, this is a newer purchase. I wanted to try this different style of Knipex from the Cobra, and I found it pretty nice. You know, I probably need to try it out a little bit longer, but it's nice to have. So with the Cobra, you're just really getting a channel lock jaw. On this, you're getting the channel lock, but then you're almost getting like a little bit of a lineman's jaw right there. So that can come in handy for twisting wires and doing odds and ends that you can't do very well with channel locks. And, you know, I like how slim it is and how pointy it is. That can allow you to get on, you know, in spaces that channel locks wouldn't allow. This is a pretty new purchase as well. I love this Klein needle nose. I freaking love them. I have used the heck out of them. Not this pair, but I have another pair with the thicker handles, and I like those handles. They're very tough and very comfortable, but they're just kind of bulky, and they don't quite fit nicely down in pockets. So I saw this one, got a good deal on it, and honestly, yeah, I'm a little bit of a tool collector. if you can't tell already. These, I will never go without these in my tool bag. I have several sets of them in different sizes. These are so unbelievably handy, and they open wide. You get that ratcheting action that you get with channel locks, but you're not going to damage the fasteners. Super great. You know, if you need to bite a piece of sheet metal and bend it, they're great for that. They're great for crushing down pipes, like if you want to crimp the edge closed so no crud gets in it. They're incredibly strong. I mean, you can stick a piece of copper wire in there and crush it. Not flat, but I mean, you can put a amazing bite on things with these. I absolutely love them. This is a newer purchase as well. You know, these are also expensive. I hate to be bringing out a lot of expensive stuff that people may not find relevant, but again, a work of freaking art. These are made by Snap-on, so no doubt they're expensive. Now, I love this style of wire stripper and crimper. Again, I'm at a point in my career where if I find something that I think is just spectacular, I don't mind buying it. Within reason, obviously. I do try to make wise choices, but the thing that I love about this pair that I couldn't find on any other pair of this style is that you have the cutters in the front and the back, but mainly in the front. So you can go in with and just cut a wire. Whereas when they're in the back here, you have to take the handles, weasel it in over, and cut it. It's just kind of annoying if you're making a lot of splices, but these are phenomenal crimpers. And unless you're doing unless you're doing 10 gauge crimps, there's really no reason to keep one of those heavy full-size crimpers in your bag. This will crimp almost everything you need in HVAC. All right, this meter, this I recently warrantied. There was a problem with my other one. Fieldpiece has a great warranty, by the way, but I love this meter. It's ridiculously big, but it does everything I need to do, and that's nice to have all in one meter. Incredible wireless range as well. Same with the probes. I mean, unbelievable. Like, you can be up on a roof and down on the ground and still read one of these tools. I keep piercing probes. These are not rated for high voltage, but man, I love them, and I have no problem using them. I know enough to be safe, but they are phenomenal. So sometimes it's really hard for, multiple reasons to see if your motor is getting full voltage. Maybe the wires go into a cabinet and are buried. Maybe you've got no wiring diagram and it's just quicker to pierce the wires and see, all right, is my motor getting voltage or is it not running because it's not getting voltage? This is a non-contact voltage stick, but my meter has that. I use this mainly because it's a very compact infrared, and it's reasonably accurate. I guess with the laser pointer, it also might be helpful for the helper. Here, chase that. No. But if you got to point something out, hey, I need you to put a support right up here in this area. But anyways, it's pretty dang accurate, and not as accurate as my fluke temp gun, but it's good enough to see what about what kind of air a vent is putting out. I've got these here. I put vinyl tubing over them to keep them from falling down, and also to keep the points from going through my tool bag. The little covers they give you are just trash. I found vinyl tubing is best for anything that's sharp. I keep these stubby wrenches. So I did try to keep full-size wrenches at one time that were ratcheting, and it's just too much weight. I don't need these very often. There's a few times a year that I'm like, man, I wish this was ratcheting, but honestly, these will fit in a lot tighter spaces, and normally, it might take me 2 or 3 times as long to get something out than it would with a ratcheting set, but they're fine. This is a Harbor Freight brand Icon. So they're more expensive than normal, but I think probably worth it. They seem to be very good quality. I'll go over what's in there later. Here's a set of wire strippers. I finally did a modification. So there are 2 modifications that I've done on this. One, I cut off that little gauge. It just gets in the way. So that little wheel that spins around allows you to set a gauge. It's stupid. That's not how you use these anyway. You get the feel for how far you need to. You can feel when you go through the insulation. When you use these, thousands and thousands of times, you can feel it, So I cut that off. I also cut off the little tab here that allows you to raise and lower this, because it was constantly getting caught on stuff in this bag, and then this thing was opening in a pocket. But it also just makes it easier to get in and out, and I just don't need it. I mean, it's perfectly easy to do that without that little goofy tab sticking out. Anyways, these are the alligator clips for the field piece. This is very dear to my heart here. I've done videos on these, and I can't possibly put a link to all this stuff in the description, but I will try to put a link to things that are somewhat odd, like this, for example. This is a resettable solid state fuse, so it works really great as a jumper. Super high quality. It works really great as a jumper because you're fuse protected, and it works really great for locating shorts, because let's say you have a short, well, you can put this in series with your transformer circuit, and this will allow you to disconnect things downstream and see when the short goes away. When the short goes away, the LED will go off. let's see, that's everything there. I keep a caliper. So this bag has a hook, which is really nice, but sometimes I need to hook on something that's a little tighter or harder to get hooked onto, and that's where this caliper hook comes in handy. So I just put that on the handle, which I have zip ties, because otherwise the bag wants to slide this way or that way, but those zip ties just keep that hook right on there. And that's one thing I love about this bag. Not only does it have a plastic bottom that's tough, but it allows the bag to sit up really nicely, which this bag was not good at doing at all. That got on my nerves after a while. I keep this. This is a really great Klein multi-tool for HVAC because you have the magnetic 1/4 and 5/16. And then of course you've got the core depressor and the little thermostat screwdriver. So this is a great tool to have in my bag because it gives me a magnetic nut driver, but I have that here. Really, I love that. Let's say I'm up in a drop ceiling, I got all my tools right there at the air handler, and let's say I want to run out to the condenser. Well, I'll just take this with me so I can take a panel off. This is just a great tool to have in your pocket as you're running around a building doing different things. You know what I'm saying? I keep the Malcos. I mean, everybody knows what these are by now. This is the 3/8, which is not that useful in residential, but very useful in commercial. A long Phillips, which I can put in my impact. This is a 3/16 stubby end and ball end. This is Bondus, made in the USA. But this is, most of your gas plugs are 3/16. Okay, so that's what that's for, taking out gas valve plugs, regulator plugs. This is a special socket that I made for LG VRF systems because the outdoor units are 7mm. It's very irritating. Why? You know, I'm sure it's fine overseas, but here I'm like, at least use a 1/4 so it can be either a 6mm or a 1/4, you know what I mean? But anyways, if you have a specialty socket that you want to magnetize, just take you some little neodymium magnets and throw them in there. In this case, the LG screws aren't very magnetic, so the magnets just stay in place. But when they are magnetic, like the one I made for Generac valve bolts, when they can pull the magnets out, you just put a little super glue in there to keep them in. Works really, really well. I keep a couple. Now, this is a meter magnet, which I've already gone over this in a video on how to make your own multimeter magnets, but that's what that is. And with the carabiner, you can clip it on your pocket so it's outside of your pants like that, and then you just take a handful of sheet metal screws and throw them on there, and now you're up in a drop ceiling and you can just reach down and grab a sheet metal screw and screw it into a piece of ductwork. So it's really, really handy. Or if you're taking something apart in a tight space, you can just put the fasteners on here. This is another magnet which I use for obviously for hanging stuff every now and then, and this is such a strong magnet that it works very well to hold in furnace switches. I know they make something for that, but it's just kind of bulky. I'd rather have a magnet like this that I can use for other things as well. Okay, of course, my impact, you do not need an 18-volt for service. You'll need it as you're doing repairs and stuff like that, but as far as just taking panels off, just use a 12-volt. It's a lot lighter and you don't strip the screws out. I keep this tape measure right here. This is just like a little 9-foot. Every now and then you may need to measure something so you can go to the supply house and then come back with what you need. I keep this wrench, which I've showed before in this other loadout video, where Klein would not like this if they saw this, but I knocked that tooth out so that I can open this up a little wider. It's very unfortunate, but this wrench works great, except it doesn't fit. It doesn't quite fit on a service valve cap, so I had to make it wider. I don't try to stretch it that wide. I try to keep it, you know, right in there, but it works really well. Right in there, right about there is where it can get a service valve cap off on the suction line. These screwdrivers, so this thing's wanting to fall over now. I'm fighting it because it's unbalanced. This is just a regular pocket screwdriver. This one, I bent the tip, bent the tip and then re-tempered it. So this thing works great. It's been very durable. The way that I re-tempered it just ended up working great. But if you're in a really tight space, and let's say on a circuit board you've got some spade connectors that just can't, you know, you're trying to pull them, but you're afraid that honestly you're gonna pull them off the board or mess up the board, you can get in there and get underneath of that spade connector and just pry it like that right off. This has obviously a lot of other uses like that. This Klein, oh. There it goes. Well, I'll get it and we'll keep going. But this Klein thermostat screwdriver, I just find this really, really helpful. I like especially when I'm doing a lot of control connections, that it has this swivel, because that just goes in the palm of your hand and then you can just swivel it like that. I've also found that these bits are really well designed. They fit very well in like the little green terminal block screws and stuff like that. This is I think relatively new light from Milwaukee. I thought I would give it a try. I had a gift card to Home Depot and I really like it so far. It's got this swivel head and it's got a magnet on the base. It was almost perfect. I would have loved this light if it had a magnet here. So what I did was I took some bicycle inner tube as a sleeve to just hold some neodymium magnets right there. The problem is, let's say your only magnetic surface is a piece of conduit and you stick it there and then it just rolls down. It needed a magnet here so that you can stick it like that and then use this flexible head to get the light where you need. It definitely needs a magnet here, and so that's why I added one. It's got a mode button, so it has mode memory. That's a big deal for me. It's just a pet peeve of mine if I have to click this button, you know, 3-4 times to get the light to go off. It just seems ridiculous. I like to leave it in the mode that I find the most helpful, and I like it just to be in that mode as soon as I cut it on. All right, let's go over this stuff now. I'm going to try not to bore you to death. I won't go through everything. This is just little petty stuff. I keep a name tag in here that has my contact info. There are still honest people in the world. I would recommend that you always, when possible, leave some way to be contacted. There are maintenance guys out there that will return your stuff. Nylog, some service caps. It bothers me if I'm up on a roof and I see these are missing. It bothers me to leave them missing. So I try to keep some just so that I can quickly ease my conscience. Here's a temp probe for my field piece. Magnetic jumpers. I've got a video on these and how to modify them. A lot of times at a thermostat, you actually need 4 connections, not 2. I mean, it's just ridiculous that they don't sell these as, you know, in groups of 4. So I just cut 2, put spades on them, and then you can put them together or take them apart and use them separately. But a lot of times you need R, G, O, Y. you know, you need more than just to connect two things. So I don't know why this is not a thing. Needle jumper, I think I got a video on those. All right, some spades, extra gaskets for my probes, fuses, electrical tape. Oh, another very useful jumper, a 4-way alligator clip. These screws, all right, the rest of this, you know, you guys know what all that stuff is. But I will just point these out. These are great. Again, remember how I was saying, if you're really careful, it's fine. But a lot of people that use these 18-volt impacts are not careful. And it just bothers me when I go up to a site and like 75% of the screws are stripped out. It's just ridiculous. But these, you can get them at the supply house. They are just thicker screws that will fit in those stripped out holes, but they still have a 5/16 head, so they don't get annoying as far as having to switch back and forth between a 5/16 and a 3/8. So these are really handy just to keep in your bag, I think. All right, now let me show something else. Another thing I like about the TP-XL is this back pouch, which I definitely do not use for a tablet. What I like to do is, now the shoulder strap that it comes with is way too big and bulky. I just got rid of that. I found another one off an old tool bag that I use. So it keeps, a shoulder strap normally bothers me if it's on a bag because it's just always flapping in the breeze, getting caught on stuff. I just don't like it, but I love that I can put it on this bag and store it away back in here, so you can take your bag up a ladder easily. But you know, you don't have this thing flopping around all the time when you don't need it. I have these tags that I like to sometimes leave notes inside units. That's what these work good for. A rag. You just never know when you're up on a roof and, you know, you go to hook up your suction gauge and a bunch of oil shoots out and you're trying to wipe it on the unit. It's better just to have a rag if you can fit it. I couldn't fit a rag in this tool bag. And this brush, these are just so handy. I love these things. For, you know, in a pinch, you can clean out a coil. Just get the shit off it at least, so you can get some airflow through there. If you're working in a really nasty space, you can sort of like brush the floor a little bit just to help keep your sanity. There's just a lot of really great uses for a brush like that. You guys know that because, you know, most all of us use those. Lastly, I want to go over stuff in this bag. I'll try to make it quick, but there's some really useful stuff in here, so I want to cover this as well. Here's a hose I made for getting my smart probes in a tight space. I got a video on that. Here's a 5/16 core depressor. Why they had to put 5/16 out in the field, I have no idea. Should have just stuck with quarter, but this is good for certain VRF systems and many splits that have the 5/16. This little ratcheting bit driver, this is a Cobalt, I think. This thing is great because not only can you get bits in tight spaces, but it's a quarter and 5/16 on this end. A service wrench, little valve. This muffler I use for bleeding out nitrogen. It's just a great way to depressurize a unit, but you know, obviously that's not super necessary. All right, so some odds and ends. That's another 5/16, just not a core depressor. Little lock for Novant caps. So one great way to carry Allens with you is just to carry the bits. Let me just grab one. There's an 8mm, which is a 5/16. This is also the Allen that will fit in a suction service valve. The liquid service valve, I think, is going to be 3/16. But you can just carry the bits instead of having to carry a bunch of Allen keys with you. And then your little bit driver will drive those, or you can stick them in the Klein. They're not going to stay in there because they don't have a ball, but you can stick them in there, you know. This is the best by far service wrench end ever. They all need to be like this. This is a Uni-Weld, I think. And I don't even know where the wrench is. I think it's in my toolbox in the van, but I didn't care about the wrench. I just bought it just for the bit. Because of, see how long it is? I hate the dual ones because they will fit in a lot of things, but you always run into that unit where you can't get one of these in far enough or whatever, and you know, this is how far it goes in and you're afraid you're gonna strip it out. This right here is the best, but it just goes in there like that, and now you have a two-sided long dual hex bit. Spare Malco just in case I lose mine on the roof. A longer flathead that I can use on my bit driver. Some other stuff in there. Yeah, some stuff I could take out like this. If you don't already have a screwdriver that has a core remover in it, then you can just throw a cap like this in your tool bag, which gives you at least a core remover. And what you need this for a lot of times is not removing cores, but on your hoses and stuff, sometimes you need to crank that out a little bit so you can actually get a connection on a unit. All right, that's about it. Well, guys and gals, I hope y'all find that helpful, and hope it helps out anybody just getting started in the field. I absolutely love this field. I think it's just a phenomenal trade to be in, and I definitely want to be as supportive as possible of any young person going into this field. All right, hope that helps. Oh, you like those, huh? Wow, little technician in training.